Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. If you're new here, I'm on a mission to play and 100% every single Final Fantasy game. And I've already done the first one, so if you're interested in going back to see how I played Final Fantasy 1, you can find that on my channel. But I'm doing this all for the very first time. I've actually never beaten a Final Fantasy before this year. Today, I'm talking about my time in Final Fantasy 2, a game that actually surprised me in many ways. If that sounds like your thing, hit subscribe and let's dive into it. Hey guys, hope you're having a good day today. I'm excited to talk to you about Final Fantasy II. I finished it off earlier this week to getting the 100%ed. It was actually something that I wasn't too sure how easy was it going to be, because if you remember watching my Final Fantasy 1 review, you'll know that I wasn't able to get the 100% before that video came out. I was able to go back and do it later on. But as you know, with Final Fantasy 1, there's a final achievement is to get 100% of the bestiary. And one of the final monsters is like a very small drop rate, so you have to kind of keep spawning that, and I couldn't do it. Anyway, Final Fantasy 2. I'm excited to talk to you guys a little bit about it and my thoughts playing it and what it was like to kind of go through this journey and with these characters. And if you don't really know the story of Final Fantasy II, that's something I actually was curious about, because I knew that Final Fantasy was each their own story. They weren't really connected, at least to my knowledge. Maybe there's some that actually do connect to other ones. But it takes place in a world ruled by what's called the Palamecian Empire. It's a ruthless regime bent on global domination kind of thing. It's led by the Emperor of Palamecia. We're introduced to the rebellion against the tyranny. It's a resistance group called the Wild Rose Rebellion. The story begins with four young friends. Their names Firion, Maria, Guy, and Leon, whose hometown is destroyed by the Empire. And during the escape, one of our companions, Leon, he disappears, leaving the remaining three to be rescued by the rebels. During that time, they then pledge themselves to the resistance, and that's where our story kind of begins, right? And it's interesting. I was playing this game coming off of Final Fantasy 1, and a lot of that similar mindset of how that story goes. And this is actually the first game that, of obviously the Final Fantasy 1, your four nameless warriors, the four beings of light. And this one, you're actually named characters. And it's something that I noticed early on, is that, hey, not only are you named characters, but your characters have dialogue in the game. Whereas Final Fantasy 1, that I can recall, they didn't have any dialogue to them. But this time your characters have story and they actually have a voice to them. So it was fun to see those characters kind of have their different personalities and whatnot, and their input into the story. So I went on this adventure, and I quickly learned that it was far different from Final Fantasy 1. The combat and leveling system is significantly different. Final Fantasy 1 is pretty stereotypical Final Fantasy leveling system. Your characters grow, level up. In this one, they took a little bit more unique approach. They actually allowed you to level up specific weapons, kind of like Skyrim almost, where you like level up specifically by doing the thing that you're doing. And that's kind of the approach that this game took. I didn't love it as much, but I appreciated the change up there. But while I was playing early on, this game holds no reservations as to you can stumble upon a high level monster without walking too far away from the beginning stages of the game. That really confused me, because I kept going like where I thought I was supposed to be going, and I just kept getting dump trucked by, land rays or something like that I was supposed to face off in the end game. They're just right there, and I thought that was pretty interesting that they had that right there. But like I normally do in these games, I kind of just jump into the combat right away, and I just started fighting a bunch of monsters. And before I knew it, I actually got my first achievement pretty quickly by getting the Apprentice Warrior achievement, which was just for defeating 100 monsters. And that began the journey of unlocking achievements. There's about 27 in these games, and honestly, it's pretty easy to get all the achievements in these games as long as you're kind of going for them. You can do it in one full swoop of a playthrough. You don't have to kind of go back, as long as you are aware of certain like monsters that you have to get before the game turns over at a certain time. So I did do some pre-work to know which monsters are going to be gone, so I didn't miss those. And treasure chests too. There are a lot of treasure chests. So as long as you kind of really don't put on the skip open world battles, and that every place you go to, you go and get every single treasure that you're there for, you shouldn't have an issue with this one. But as the story goes, you meet Princess Hilda, and she tells you about the Wild Rose, and it's the name of the rebellion, the kind of the password to the rebellion. So and along the way, one of the main achievements is getting every password from the entire game, and it's just different like keywords that certain characters say. Then you have to hit like the learn button to learn those. Those are also missable, so you have to make sure you get those ones as well. But the first one you get is Wild Rose, and that achievement unlocks. And along the way, you're kind of, as you are with most of these Final Fantasy games, the open world is constantly hitting you over the head with monsters, and eventually that led to my next achievement where I got 10% of the bestiary really quick. And as the game goes on, I mean, it's a good game, right? You have a lot of these achievements that just kind of pop as you go about your business doing this. There's nothing really that you have to go off the beaten path to go do. Even in Final Fantasy 1, you had to kind of go off and, you go get Excalibur. You had to go and get the level up, if you remember that in the first game, from the dragons. They give you like a boost in the mid game where you can miss that completely if you don't go through that. And in this one, there's nothing that makes it stand out when it comes to certain achievements. So as long as you kind of play through the game, you're going to get most of these. But yeah, the story is pretty solid. I did enjoy the stakes in this one a lot more than I did with Final Fantasy 1. Characters actually die in this one. Your companions that you pick up along the way actually sacrifice themselves for you throughout the game. You had Yosef at the very beginning. You had Minwu later on in the game, and even Ricard, who shows up in the middle of the game. They all kind of sacrifice themselves and provide some stakes to the game. But I'm getting ahead of myself a little bit here, but the story's solid. You're kind of going through and eventually get to a point where you really get to confront the Empire, and for the very first time, and you meet the Emperor and his sidekick, the Dark Knight, and they really kind of show the might of the Dreadnought war machine that they have, and they go through and just demolish all these different towns that you had set foot in the early stages of the game, and a lot of people that you had seen in there suddenly are no longer there, and you go through all these different towns, and all these people are injured now or not or gone, and you really see the might of the Dreadnought, and that kind of sparks the fire in our trio into we got to take down the Dreadnought. And this was actually a really exciting moment for me, as most of you know that I'm a big Kingdom Hearts fan, and I knew that Sid was introduced somewhere in these early games, and this is where we get to see him for the very first time in the Final Fantasy universe. And I didn't notice it at first because he looks very different from what he does in the Kingdom Hearts games, but to run across Sid and to see him was awesome to see. And it's just like, oh wow, this is where he begins, and he's such a big impact on my childhood in those Kingdom Hearts games. So it was really cool to see Sid for the very first time. And you work with Sid to kind of get the right materials to go and blow up this Dreadnought, and that's kind of where the next story takes us. And along the way, before I get to that point, I collected a few more treasures. I collected a few more achievements. Like the Rookie Treasure Hunter, you get 10% of the treasure chest. You get Smart Saver, money bags. Both of those achievements came pretty quickly. And then I went and did the counterattack achievement where we go to the Dreadnought. And this is one of the first places where you can miss some trophies or treasure chests. So you have to make sure you go through and get all the chests in here. So I went and made sure I got all the chests in there before I left. And then I proceeded to blow up the Dreadnought and take out the Empire's biggest weapon. Next, we're introduced to our next party member, Layla. She's a pirate queen, which I am always a big fan of a pirate queen. And we have to actually fight her first before we can actually earn her trust. But we go and fight her. She gives us rights to her ship, and we then go sailing to our next destination. Along the way, we'd pick up the 50% bestiary entries, and we're getting to the midpoint of the game at this point. We've run into Commander Gatos one last time as we go back to Castle Finn, and we reclaim Castle Finn for us, and then we take out Commander Gatos and we get to reclaim our castle once more. Along the way, then we find we get to the veteran treasure hunter, 50% of all chests, and at this point I thought I was like, well, only 50%. I thought I was way further into the game at this point, and we only had about like 10 more achievements left. So the fact that I was at 50% treasures, so I was like, oh, I got so many more treasures I gotta find. So, and then we get to a point where we actually, and I mentioned him earlier, we run into the dragoons, or the lack of dragoons. They're actually all gone by this point. But then we actually find out there's one more dragoon, and it's Ricard. We find him, he joins the team, and we become allies with Ricard the Dragoon, and the last Dragoon achievement pops. One of the main things that you have to worry about to get one of the achievements in the game is getting level 16 in weapons and magic. I noticed quickly that to do this easily with magic is just to cure, and I just kind of started spamming cure every possibility I could with Maria, and eventually that got to level 16 and I was able to pop that right around this point of the game. And then one of our tasks, and I kind of skipped over, one of the tasks in the game, we were given a wyvern egg from one of the last old dragons. He wanted us to go take it to one of these mystic lakes to put it in so the dragons don't die out. And we go and do that. And when we meet with Ricard and go and reclaim Castle Finn, we actually are able to summon that dragon egg that we put in the lake, and it hatches and he comes to our rescue, and we're able to go into the cyclone and fight the Emperor, and we take the Emperor down and we actually kill him. But that's when the Dark Knight, the side man to the Emperor, takes his throne, and then that is the point where we are revealed that person, the Dark Knight, which was pretty on the nose. I figured it out pretty quickly. The fact that we hadn't seen him since the beginning of the game and we're nearly to the end, and it's the only other character in this game, is that Leon is actually the Dark Knight. I don't believe this is the same Leon from Final Fantasy VIII or Kingdom Hearts that I'm familiar with. I think this is a different character. But yeah, so we get the new Palamecia achievement as the Dark Knight ascends to the Emperor's throne. So when we do the Allied Offensive quest, we actually confront the Dark Knight once again, and we're going to fight him or knock some sense into him because he is Maria's brother. So we're trying to kind of convince him that what he's doing is wrong. And then before we actually get to fight him, the Emperor comes back from hell, essentially. He is risen from hell, and he's now this big demon Emperor guy. And we then take all of us back. We run back to Castle Finn, away from the Emperor, and Leon comes, and he sees that his cards are against him, and he's like, I'll be on your side now. A very quick turn. That could have been done a little bit better, but it is what it is. The game's nearly over at this point. He gives us Excalibur for us to use, and that then pops the Sword of Myth achievement. And then we're in the end game now. One of the final achievements of the game pops, and it's the Adventurous Wayfarer. And that's when we kind of go through Jade Crossing. It's just this cave that we have to go through, and that then leads to Hell. And we get to Hell, and then that pops. And this is such a cool map. It looks really cool. The music is awesome. It's probably the first time in this game that the music has actually stood out to me. Whereas in the first game, the music was very prevalent. I understand certain beats and stuff. For this game, I didn't really notice the music until this final one. But along the way, while we're traversing through Hell, we get the legendary treasure hunter, which is just 100%ing all the chests. And that was a relief because, again, that's one of the achievements that you can miss. And if you miss it, then you have to play through the whole game again. And I didn't want to do that. And I knew I had a few more achievements left, but I knew that I didn't miss any of them. So we then do the final battle with the Emperor, and just like Final Fantasy 1, the Emperor final battle is a significant skill increase from everything else you fight up to that point. And I ran my head through a wall many different times, and I just got so frustrated that I gave up, and I went and researched how I was supposed to do it. And a lot of people had a lot more powerful weapons or magic that I just didn't have. But I did see someone say, hey, use the blood sword. It's a weapon that I picked up that I had never used, but they said use it. And I was like, I did not know what impact the blood sword would have, and here, I'll just play you my reaction to it. Oh! That's... Okay, I get it. I get it. So this is going to be really quick. Yeah, okay. What is that? That's hilarious. Okay. I honestly had no idea what that would do. Wow. Funny. Like, I didn't look up. I thought that was going to give me an advantage. I did not know that that was going to give me a one-hit kill or a two-hit kill. And yeah, so we beat the Emperor, and the final achievement of the story, Wars and Pops. And, you know, we bring peace to the land of Finn, and our heroes go on their way to being, you know, heroes. And at this point, it kind of takes you back to right before you go to the Jade Passage, and you can go back and capture a few different achievements. And at this point, I thought I had gotten the memory lane password achievement, but apparently I missed one, and I had a panic attack because I knew that some of those were missed. But I can actually go back to Hilda, and I found out that it's just I had to learn the Jade Passage key phrase, and once I got that, it dropped the achievement, and I unlocked that one. So at this point, I had 2 more left, which is 100% of the bestiaries, and then getting a weapon to level 16. And I decided that I would probably do both at the same time and go through the different variation of regions that I was missing certain monsters. And this is where I was getting kind of sweaty because of my experience with Final Fantasy 1 and how difficult it was to get the War Machine beast to appear. And in this one, it has a smaller drop rate with the Iron Giant. The beast, or the War Machine, was 4% drop in Final Fantasy 1. The Iron Giant is about a 1.6% chance. So I got really sweaty, and I was worried about that. But I also had to worry about leveling up my weapons. And apparently, it doesn't tell you this, but once you get to a certain weapon threshold, the weapons don't level up anymore. So I had to actually go down a few weapons and gave them to Firion, and he was able to kind of hack and slash his way through a bunch of the end game monsters, and we were able to level up his weapons pretty quickly. While I was doing that, it actually spawned holy crap. Of course I have... Oh, good heavens. We're going to finish this pretty quickly, aren't we? Yes! Alright, we're going to now... Guys. Give me that. Give me. One more. Awesome, guys. That went by a lot faster than I thought it was going to. The Iron Giant spawned in the middle of all that, and I was actually able to take out the Iron Giant and completing Achievement 26 and Field Research Professional popped. And then I only had one left. And at this point, it was just to get my weapon to level 16. And after a few more battles with some of the end game monsters, got to level 16. My sword was level 16, and the final achievement popped. And it's our second Final Fantasy game. We did it. That's awesome. Number 2, guys. That's awesome. 100%. I enjoyed going back and playing this game for what it was. I know that these first few games aren't the most beloved Final Fantasy games ever, but I really enjoyed it, which is saying a lot because that means that the next games are going to be a lot more fun for me. So had a blast experiencing this. Really enjoyed the combat, really enjoyed the story. I think the story was my favorite part, and the characters. The characters were really they really stood out compared to Final Fantasy 1. So again, thanks guys. I really do appreciate your time watching this video. It was a lot to put together, a lot of fun to do for you. So if you want to see this journey continue, please subscribe, like, comment, let me know what you think of this game. I would really appreciate it. So until next time, guys, I really do appreciate you here. And yeah, thank you so much. It means a lot.